Welcome back to the channel where I give you my recommendations for streaming content up front, and then you stay tuned to go ahead and actually see my reasonings afterwards. Today, we're going to go ahead and actually look at the Tubi sci-fi drama Pressurx. Now, if you're a target audience member for this, meaning that you like sci-fi dramas with interesting premise and sci-fi devices, things of that nature, then I'm going to go and actually say that you watch one episode of this series. If you're a casual, you have no interest in sci-fi dramas, you're not interested in sci-fi premise, you're just kind of like seeing if this is going to be your thing, I'm going to go ahead and actually say that you're going to skip this particular series. Now, stay tuned, and I'll go ahead and actually justify why I gave it those recommendations.
Age?
Not just your age, but how long a person lives.
Lifespan. Like some psychic reading? I've been to those. They awful. Then what
Pressurx is a sci-fi drama that premiered on Tubi in February of 2024. Its first season has 5 episodes that are roughly about 25 minutes each, and it stars Dejor Ashwood as Jamie Don, Lakeita Booker as Kennedy Barre. IMDb describes the plot like this. An out-of-work accountant finds a lifespan device that determines how long someone will live, but puts his life in danger. There's your premise. The series is part of my Varnell Hill videos, and it's the type of videos that asks, that's right, did you miss this? These are the series that have been streaming for at least 6 months or longer, but they haven't gotten the attention by mainstream. Now, I like to highlight these series to see if they deserve the lack of attention that they're not getting, or if they might be a diamond in the rough for you. So first and foremost, let's go and actually determine if I'm a target audience for this type of series. So this is a Black-centric cast, so I'm on board with it like that, right up my alley. It's a sci-fi drama. That's a check for me. I like sci-fi dramas, especially if they have a very interesting premise about them. This is a very little known cast, which can kind of go either way with me. I'm not always a fan of that. There's usually somebody that I should recognize, even if they're a character actor. So that's kind of like not really for me. And let's just face it, one of the things that you have to go and actually consider is this is a Tubi approved release. So that kind of puts me on the side of like, not really my thing. So when you take those factors into account, I'm going to go ahead and actually say that I'm on the fence for this. I'm neither a target audience, nor am I a casual. So I'm going into it kind of right in the middle, just kind of seeing what this series is about. If you like how that sounds, do me a favor, click like, share, subscribe. And now let's go ahead and actually dive into it. So when looking at this particular context of Pressurx, I'd like to go ahead and actually give like a frame of reference of what type of content that this is kind of riffing off of, or what's it inspired by, or anything like that. And I would actually say that this is kind of a mix of Minority Report with Repo Man. And if you kind of think about what those contain, whether it's an interesting premise, whether it's talking about sci-fi, action, that type of thing, that's what this particular series is trying to mimic or is inspired by. In episode 1, some of the things that I noticed on here, first and foremost, the filter that was on this camera was weird. And you'll notice it automatically. There's just some weird color hues that they use on there. And usually it's not really a big thing for me, but it was noticeable and it was distracting. And it was just crazy for me. The audio mixing was all over, meaning that there are some scenes that you could hear the actors very well. There's other scenes where you have to turn up the volume to go and actually hear them. Really gets on my nerves. Audio is obviously a big thing. I'm not the greatest at audio, but man, if you're going to put together a series, a movie, or anything like that, you got to know what you're doing with the audio. And just wasn't hitting on this one. They go into you get like the first couple of scenes and get the explanation of things, but they really kind of speed run your first few scenes to kind of know what is actually happening, and they don't really set up anything, meaning like you're just kind of thrown into it, and that could be okay, I guess, if you're talking about something that's very action-packed or has a premise that you can kind of understand up front. But you have to explain some things in this, and they don't take any time to explain anything in that first episode. The speed run of the different scenes is just hilarious. It just kind of runs through it. The device that the series is promising as far as determining people's lifespans, very interesting concept, very interesting premise. And it's introduced in the first episode, so you at least go ahead and actually see that and get a hint of it. But it's really not something that you can go and actually attach a lot to, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit. The lines and the acting in the first episode are forced. It's just they're not great. Now, when we go ahead and actually get to around about the halfway point, a little bit past the halfway point, we kind of get a flashback to what actually happened at the very beginning of the episode, because they kind of play you a clip of the what's going to happen later in the episode, very in the very front of episode 1. And I don't know why they did that. It just is off-putting, because you actually think that that's happening then and there, and then it happens later on in that episode, and then you kind of find out, because fast forward over to episode 2, that actually is the way that they do probably all their episodes, and that is put you a clip of what's coming up in that episode up front to try and entice you to watch the episode. But it's very confusing to do that in episode 1, because we don't know what's going on. So it was just kind of like a weird thing that they decided to do. There are mercenaries that are chasing our main characters who have the device, and they're just weird. There's not a really good descriptive way on it to describe them, other than to say that they are weird. And I think that they're meant to kind of be like the mercenaries that are in, like, say, the Umbrella Academy, right? But they don't work, and it's not great. It's just all over the place. And the ending of episode 1 is decent if you're kind of into the story, but you're going to have to be so forgiving on everything else that came before it in episode 1, because you're so distracted by different things of the way it goes on there. It's like, the ending is okay. At least they're trying to build you into wanting you to watch episode 2, but it's a chore to get to the end of episode 1. Then when you look at episode 2, begins very much same way as we do episode 1, as far as jumping that one scene in there. You're actually, the device in this particular case, so the lifespan is kind of weird, because now, and I'm trying not to spoil the plot points in here in case you want to watch it, but what they decide to do with the device is so low hanging, so uninspired, that you're just like, why are they doing it with this? Like, you have this very interesting plot device, and then they're doing nothing with it. This is just really crazy. Mercs now that are pursuing them in episode 1, you see them now in episode 2, and they're talking with the big bad, and the big bad in here is kind of like just not inspiring at all. It's kind of a weird dynamic of who he is and what he's doing and what his motivation is, and it's just so it's very mustache twirling, but not really in a good way. There's further things that go in, actually further stories that happen with the mercs while they're pursuing them, that just makes the mercs seem like incompetent. And so if it was more like a comedy, I guess so, it's almost like Home Alone-ish or something like that, but just the mercs is just not fun. And then the time progression with this series is all over the place, meaning I don't know if it's going by days, hours, days, weeks past. You don't know. It's just so kind of weird. And then honestly, for the end of the second episode, is very uninspiring, very much worse than the first one, and just you're glad that you get to the end of episode 2. So those are kind of the things that I noticed about those first 2 episodes. And let me break down a couple of things of storytelling and acting. So what I will say about this, as far as the storytelling, it's fast paced and almost as much to a fault as I've kind of alluded to before. There's plenty of story or character development that they just kind of lay by the wayside. They neglect to tell you, they neglect to show you anything, and you're just kind of left wondering, okay, this must be happening, or this must have happened, or whatever. And it just kind of leaves you disconnected. The time passage is crazy. Don't know what's going on. You don't know how much has passed or whatever to kind of let you know what's going on, and they didn't build it into the script, so you're kind of left to wonder about it. The main characters don't, with this interesting device, interesting premise, they have no idea what to do with this. And I don't know why the story writers went the way that they did with this. I guess they're trying to say that this couple that needs money, and they're so regular, ordinary people that they can't come up with something better to do with the device. But I can guarantee you, I'm a regular person, and I'd have came up with something better than what they were trying to do with it. And so it's just they're spoiling and leaving flat something that has a very interesting premise by making the main characters seem pretty dumb about it. The other thing that they don't do very well is kind of like really show how the device operates. Do you have to be in the same room with it in order to make its determination? What triggers it to go ahead and actually read one person or not one? Why is it not on for this? Or why is it determined this or that? And why doesn't it read everyone all this at the same time? Because like in the premise that I read for you, they're actually telling you that it's going to go ahead and actually tell you about how long someone will go ahead and actually live, but it's not as clean cut as that. And so they just don't do a good job of telling you enough in order to draw you into this interesting premise. The plot holes of this storytelling and this script are so bad that I've seen high school media classes come up with better written scripts and storytelling to set up. And so for this, I'm going to go ahead and actually say storytelling is a D for this particular series. There's nothing inspiring about any of the actors in this series. And I feel bad saying that because, again, I'm not trained as an actor. I've never worked in the industry or anything like that. So it kind of feels, bad to go and actually critique people that put themselves out there. But when you do put yourselves out there creatively, you are putting yourselves out there for people to critique. So this is what it is. The leads, the main two characters are boring and they're uninteresting. There's nothing that really interests me about them. The mercs that are pursuing them are just inconsistent and off-putting. They just, like I said, they're comical, but not in a good way. It's just what am I supposed to get out of that? The other supporting casts are various Tubi level of characters, meaning that sometimes they're that's the best that I get is that and then at worst they are bad. Usually even in a Tubi type of movie or independent type of movie, I can find like one or two characters that are either one, putting in some solid work and you can kind of see some potential there, or two, that they're at least funny and entertaining. Get neither one of those in this one as far as the acting. And so for acting for this particular series, I'm going to go and actually have to have it as a D. Overall, I'll never completely fail an independent project because making this kind of content with limited resources is very challenging. You're putting yourself out there, whether you go and actually finance it, you're writing it, you're doing the audio, you're doing the editing, you're the actor, you're the action, you're choreographing all different types of things on here. So never going to go and actually fail it all the way because, hey, glad that you put yourself out there versus like a big budget studio thing or what have you. But that being said, you're putting something out there to try and entertain people, and it's just not entertaining. Honestly, the only reason that someone will go and actually watch this is if you're friends or family of people that were involved in the production of this, or you like the premise so much that you at least want to tune in to kind of see, what do they do with this particular premise or what have you. And that's kind of all you would go and actually do. It's a great premise of, a device that determines people's lifespans. You can do a lot with that. Unfortunately, the series doesn't do anything with that, and that's disappointing. But like I said, this is one of those things on there where if you are a target audience member, you might want to tune in for one episode, see if it's your thing. If you're a casual, best to go ahead and actually watch something else that you can sink your teeth into. But that's what I have for Pressurx on Tubi. Check it out. You stayed for the entire video. I appreciate you. Do me a favor. If you liked anything on this video, click like. You want to go and actually share with someone, cool. And if you really like this, you want to see more reviews, go ahead and actually subscribe to the channel. Working our way up to like 400. Maybe we can get up to 500 or what have you within the coming months or what have you. If that hasn't convinced you yet, go ahead and actually leave me some comments down below or watch one of the videos right here. The algorithm thinks that you might like of mine. But until next time, I'll holler at you. Take care of yourself.
Now that's a happy ending. Or is it? Because everything's over now, and all that's left is you and the infinite void.